might have seen this recently. So I was lucky enough to be contacted by National Geographic. I was kind of weirded out at first because I've only really seen like animals on the cover of National Geographic. And so I was like, how are they going to represent us? So I was like, interesting, but hey, I still want to do it because I'm willing to do most everything that will increase education and awareness about intersex, because I really want to end these surgeries that happen to us. I was like, I'll do it. They were like, just, you probably might not happen, so don't get your hopes set up too high. And a few months later, they said, okay, we picked you. Can you come out to New York and shoot the cover? I was like, yeah, that's so cool. I got to fly out to New York and stay in a cool hotel for one night with a really cool rooftop pool. And I had an intersex friend come join me. She bought us a bottle of Prosecco, which I'm still not sure what it was, but it was delicious and it was alcoholic. The next day I went and did the shoot. Let me show you the other pictures. So there was the cover, which you already saw, and then there was this picture, also published. That's my big head right. Once this issue got released online, there was a lot of people talking about it. Here's where a lot of the drama, though, came in with the cover. And that has to do with the identities on the cover. It says things like intersex, non-binary, trans female, and then trans male. And that's my son Money. Bigender, androgynous. And then it says male, which was one of the biggest sources of complaints online was, quote, why is there a regular male on the cover and not a regular female? Number one, check yourself. I see plenty of normal females on the cover. There's one, two, I see two. And they just happen to be trans females. But why does that mean that they're not normal or quote unquote regular? I think that's the thinking that we need to dismantle. Don't be sitting out there on the internet being like, there ain't no normal women on the cover. I don't see no regular women. That's really transphobic. It's really messed up. And frankly, it's anti-woman. Because if you pretend to be pro-women with these questions that you were throwing out, and you're saying like, where's the real women? Then you're not really pro-women, because you're not pro-all women. You're just pro, like, certain types of cisgender, cis women. The second part is simple. We were shooting all day. The photographer was hired to shoot this cover. The photographer is not a gender studies person, wasn't sitting there asking us, are you intersex, are you this, are you that? We didn't have no tags on our bodies that said, hi, I'm Pidgeon, I'm intersex. And of course, National Geographic could have been more involved in making sure that there was a wider representation on the cover image. But let me tell you why that didn't happen. The photographer and his assistant would put us in front of the camera one by one. And then he would put a second person and kind of look how that looked. Then he put a third person. And he wasn't thinking about gender or sexuality or nothing. He was thinking about, how does the light fall on us? How do we fit in the frame? But the very end of the day, one of the producers for the issue said, can you stay? Can you stay? Can you stay? And like a few others, can you stay? I know we said you guys could go, but we were wondering if we could get one more photo of a smaller group. And that happened to be the cover photo. And I think what they were first thinking is that with the bigger groups, they would have all of us here, and then it would flip around to the back, and then it would be like you can open it up and see all of us, because there was really no way to fit us all on the cover. And that's kind of what we were told throughout the shoot, is that it would be like a front and back thing. I think he was worried about that in case it didn't happen, which is what it did not happen. There's a car in the back. Instead, he wanted to get one shot that was smaller, a smaller group shot. I don't think he had any knowledge of what we identified as. So that's number one. And number two, I didn't even know the person who was labeled just male was just male or whatever. I didn't know that. I kind of assumed everybody there was either trans or intersex or something else that wasn't cisgender. And I didn't find out until this cover came out and it just says male. But I ended up reaching out to that person on Instagram and saying, hey, I'm hearing a lot of feedback about, you being on the cover of this issue and not, whatever, having a regular female on the cover. And they told me that I was reached out to for this cover. I don't know why. And I just accepted to further my career. So I think there was some disconnect there with the casting of the cover. Or maybe not. Because in the inside with the bigger group, there's also someone who's just identifies as a female. And I think what happened was they wanted to have intersex people, trans men, trans women, cis women, androgynous people, bigender people, non-binary people, and gender non-conforming people. And they wanted to show like the whole spectrum. I think unfortunately the cover ended up only being 7 of us, and that's what National Geographic ended up choosing for the cover, was the small group photo that was taken at the end of the day. And you don't see that full spectrum. The full spectrum is actually on the inside. So yeah, that's that's kind of the biggest thing that I've heard online, and the biggest critique. Oh, and also my own critiques are that, like, there could have been more representation of people who are not able-bodied, who are fat identified, who weren't from the US, etc., etc. But yeah, that could be said for almost every magazine. On the bright side, I was very, very excited to represent intersex people in this cover, and non-binary. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I have mad appreciation for everyone who reached out and loved the magazine and loved the cover. And some parents have reached out and said it's really hard to raise an intersex child, and it kind of helped them feel like the future would be a little bit better for their kid, and that this is one of those indications pointing towards that. So yeah, I'm glad I did it, you know, but like anything, there's problems. But that was just those two pictures. I wasn't interviewed for the magazine or nothing like that. So I got the magazine recently, and what's interesting is I'm really not that down with the articles at all. The whole issue is about gender. The issue is front to back, pretty much US-centric, second wave, white feminism. There's not, in terms of the gender analysis, there's not much going on with intersectionality at all. And the most pressing issue, I think, is that there's such a US-centric focus and lens on the way that the articles are written, especially about the coming of age ceremonies in Africa. And they also talk about FGM in Africa for young girls and cutting and things like that. So again, you see these tropes being played out that I think are dangerous, in that it sets and positions the US as more gender liberated and more feminist and having more equal rights than other countries. Other, very important word. And what that does is plays into our country's psyche and allows us to trick ourselves into believing that we need to go in and liberate other countries and other people and other women and whatever. And this magazine, unfortunately, reifies a lot of those really negative and harmful stereotypes about the quote-unquote like backwardness of gender in other countries and cultures. So I think it's important that we put a close magnifying glass on our culture, and like, perfect example, intersex children and what happens to intersex kids in this country, trans women of color in this country, what happens to them every day in this country. We could have talked about those things instead of trying to paint pictures of gender being this really hard and horrible thing for people in other places. So yeah, anyways, someone told me this is the most subscribed to magazine in the world and the most read. So it's just kind of cool that one of these issues, which I'm sure my grandkids, if I have them, will be cutting up one day for making collages, and they'll see me and they'll see the word intersex and non-binary and maybe look it up. Or maybe by then, hopefully, people won't even care about those words. They'll be like, duh, like everyone's non-binary or intersex or trans, and that'll just be like part of our society, and it will be tolerated and accepted and loved, and more than tolerated and accepted, it'll just be loved and respected and normalized. Not that normal's great, but it'll be part of just the everyday. I just want to give a shout out to everyone else that was on the cover and on the inside. It was really great to meet you. I got a lot of modeling work to do with the face, and I gotta squinch my eyes a little more. Yeah, you guys killed it. You guys look really good. Thank you so much, National Geographic, and thank you so much, Henry, I can't say your last name, Lutweiler, I want to say, the photographer, for having us. So that was my experience shooting the cover of National Geographic. I hope I shed some light for you about why the cover was the way it was. Here's to 2017 with the gender revolution. Oh, they never told us it was going to be called Gender Revolution, by the way. I am not down with that title. I do not think this is a gender revolution at all. But anyways, you can't control everything. Okay, that reminds me, third problem is the freaking magazine typed in the definition sections. They wrote under the definition of intersex, disorder of sex development. They didn't even write difference of sex development, which is still bad, but they wrote disorder of sex development. So thanks to you all on Twitter and Facebook, they did change the definition from a stigmatizing, horrible definition of disorder of sex development to they took that out in only the digital version. So unfortunately, in this magazine, what my kids will be cutting out one day, my grandkids, for collaging, if people still collage in the future, it'll say disorder of sex development, and it's just bad. But what you gonna do? I heard Rupert Murdoch owns it now, so I blame Rupert Murdoch for that mistake. But yeah, I'll talk to you soon, and remember, intersex stories, not surgeries.